In the meantime, Amnesty International says 15 protesters arrested during the Endsars protest of 2020 are still being arbitrarily detained 3 years later. The organization, in a statement on Friday, says most of the protesters are in Kirikiri Medium Correctional Center and Ikoyi Medium Security Correctional Center in Lagos without trial. Amnesty also accused authorities of filing trumped-up charges against them, including theft, arson, possession of unlawful firearms, and murder against many of these protesters. Now, joining me to further discuss this is Hassan, Taiwo Soweto, spokesperson, Youth Rights Campaign. Taiwo, thank you so much for talking to us.
Yeah, well, thanks for
So can you briefly share with us what the Endsars protest has actually achieved? Because we have had issues with police brutality being talked about by many and the abuse of power in Nigeria. And the Nigerian youth had come out to say these vices should end. It's been 3 years now, and we have started seeing allegedly now some sort of brutality against Nigerians by the Nigerian police, or should we say security personnel. So has the Endsars protest achieved anything so far in the last 3 years?
it has achieved something, obviously, but its work is not yet fully done. First, it has raised awareness about these menace of the police brutality and state repression. It has woken up a new generation of young Nigerians who have taken a decision right from that day, 3 years ago, to continue to fight, to continue to speak out in every way possible until Nigeria is free. And thirdly, it has also sent a clear warning to the Nigerian capital ruling elite that Nigerians are not going to be complacent while their rights are being violated, why they are being impoverished, why police brutality is being unleashed on them. So when you look at these three instances that I've mentioned, you see that these are clear, achievements, of the movement, which continues even till today. Of course, over the past 3 years, we have continued to see police brutality continue in many forms. And I think that what that indicates is the fact that the work of that movement is not yet done. As my organization, the Youth Rights Campaign, argued 3 years ago at the peak of the Endsars, we said that police brutality is actually a product of a very oppressive capitalist system. The police themselves are just an instrument of class oppression. So that while we fight for reforms in the police, they can only go so far. The only way to end police brutality will be to end the capitalist system in Nigeria. This system of brutal class rule that continues to reprogram the mass of people and uses the police and the army to keep people down so that they cannot speak for themselves. And I think to the extent that the struggle of the Nigerian people and the youth have not yet been able to end capitalism, it will mean that all possible variations of the police brutality will continue.
So does that mean that the advocacy, the awareness, and even the disbandment of the SARS by the federal government has not really influenced conversation and decisive actions to be taken in order to enforce police reforms and see how some sort of change can happen within that security apparatus in Nigeria?
And there have been some, superficial reforms and changes. We had, the disbandment of SARS, we had the improvement allegedly by the government of the salaries of the police officers a few years after the SARS. And we even had the trial of some police officers who have committed some misdemeanor. We continue to see that happen even till today. The police trying to ensure that they are seen, to be dealing with officers who committed misdemeanor or violations against Nigerian people. But we agree with me that despite all of those efforts that we don't used to see before, despite all of those reforms and efforts over the past 3 years, it does not appear that that has really changed the psyche of an ordinary police person. And you will see that even right there with some of the videos you have shown about what happened yesterday around the Lekki toll gate. The character, the way the police talks to people, the way they prevent ordinary people from moving from point A to point B, even the idea of preventing somebody who has obviously come to join the memorial walk from going to meet those who are already died is a violation of freedom of movement and the right to freedom of expression of average Nigerian people. Because what the Constitution condemns really, it's an unlawful procession as well as violence. But if you are going to be gathered to observe the people, that's something which is done all over the world. Even in Gaza, where the Israeli forces continue to pound people, killing civilians, people see organized funeral procession. Let alone in Nigeria where you don't have a war going on. So in that sense, you could see that all of this incident of police brutality still continues. And the point I'm making is that while all of this still continues, despite some of the appreciable progress that we have seen in the few instances in the past 3 years, it's because the root of the crisis still remains. The police are by their nature an instrument of class oppression. You cannot change that unless you change, the system from which they come from. If you look at the history of the Nigerian police, prior to colonial times, they were not there to maintain law and order. They were not established by the colonial authorities to maintain law and order. Yeah.
Now, Hassan, just to wrap it up, we know that one of the highlights of the Endsars protest was the fact that it was hijacked by miscreants and hoodlums and eventually turned violent. And that's one of the things that you have talked about this morning. So when it comes to dealing with issues like this, what are the measures that should be put in place to ensure that protesters are peaceful in their conduct, to ensure that the entire exercise is civil, and to also ensure that there is safety not only for the protesters now, but also law enforcement officers who are meant to guide during the course of the march or the protest or whatever it is that they are doing at that particular time? What can be done now to actually ensure that everything is peaceful?
Well, protests are always been peaceful in Nigeria. Only the state and the police decides to attack peaceful protest, thereby turning it into a chaotic affair. And that was exactly what happened with the Endsars protest. You have just said that it was hijacked, but the word hijack itself, I think, it's a bit of a misplacement. Talks and touts were sponsored by the state to actually take over the protest and to chase away the original protesters. That was what happened across the country. So that if we are talking about how to ensure peaceful protest in the coming period now, we have to take the ball down to the court of the state, which is that the state and the police have to operate in a fair manner. They have to recognize the right of Nigerians to peacefully gather, and that their role is simply to be there to provide security. Then for the protesters themselves, there's a need also to take responsibility by ensuring that there is a democratic leadership for protest. There is stewarding of protest, ensuring that those who are part of the protest and those who are just bystanders, that there's a clear demarcation between them. Above all, there's a need for the Nigerian state. But the reason why there are protests also, protests are not exactly natural. Protests occur only because people have grievances that the state is not prepared to listen to. If the Nigerian state can also begin to listen to its people and to provide a better life for them, there will be no protest, and then possibly there will be no fear of any hijack or any violence in the forum.
Hassan Taiwo, Soweto, thank you so much for talking to us on the news.
Thanks, man.